Welcome to Life Expressions, where we ignite stories that inspire transformation. I'm your host, Charie Ginete-Ilon. Before I continue, may I invite you to click that follow or subscribe button. Please follow Life Expressions on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. And today, I'm glad to sit down with Susan Bains, an award-winning accessibility advocate and educator, recently recognized at the Surrey Board of Trade Women in Business Awards. Susan's journey reminds us that accessibility isn't just about removing barriers. It's about opening doors, changing mindsets, and creating communities where everyone belongs. In this conversation, we'll dive into her personal journey of advocacy. At the heart of Susan's work, I must say, is the very essence of spark that I also live by. The service she gives to her community, the purpose that drives her, the attraction of positive change that ripples outward, the resilience she embodies, and the knowing that inclusion benefits us all. Hi, Susan. Welcome to Life Expressions. How are you today?
Hi, Charie. I'm good. Thank you, and thanks for having me.
Of course. Susan, what first inspired you to become an advocate for accessibility, and how did that path lead you to where you are today?
So my journey into accessibility advocacy really began with a personal challenge. Living with a spinal cord injury, which started in 2016. It was a diagnosis, a very rare diagnosis that made life very challenging throughout the years. And slowly, I was losing mobility. And by 2021, I became a permanent wheelchair user. And it wasn't until that time that I really saw the barriers that existed around me. You know, when I was using other mobility aids like crutches, I was able to take, a couple steps to get over some of the barriers. But as a permanent wheelchair user, it was just all around me. And that really made me aware of the challenges and the barriers that existed. So, right away, I live in White Rock, and right away, I made sure that I connected with the city to tell them, hey, these are some of the things that are barriers. These are some proposed solutions, and took photos and really I sent it to them hoping that I would get a response and some action. And I did receive a response, but there really was no action. And then, I was waiting for a while up until I saw a news clip where another advocate had taken the issues to the news, the very same ones that I had been emailing about already for the last 2 years.
Wow.
And when I saw the response from the city, right, it was specifically was about the pier.
Yeah.
And the response was from an able-bodied person saying that they were able to push a wheelchair and a stroller down the pier, so therefore it was accessible. And that really, lit the fire under me at that moment, because I knew that that was a completely wrong mindset and response, especially from, a city leader. And then I also knew I wasn't the only one that had these issues and wasn't the only one bringing it to light. So it was at that moment I knew that I had to make it a bigger cause. And that's when I connected with national, provincial, local organizations to write in letters of support. And I received over 19. So it was a great feeling to get that army of support behind me, and presented as a delegation at the city. And it was a full package that I provided, not only letters of support, but I had done the research on different accessibility mats, the specs, the costs, and really brought that forward, including legislation obligations, so that they were aware. I was met with, okay, let's go find funding then, go find funding. And that wasn't the response that I expected. And so it was a 9-month-long journey to fight with the city, and really had to pull in all the stops. So I went to media because I realized public pressure was also needed. So media on all levels, with the local newspaper here, global news, different news broadcasts as well, and talk radio, and started a petition. I had to do a rally, and I led all of this. And I had a great support with my fellow members in Equal Access Collective as well. We had just come together as a group, and together It wasn't just us in the group, it was the community involved. It were all of these organizations involved. And it was a big learning curve for a lot of people and for the city that this is something that they should be required to do in their public space. And really it's a win-win because having, peace in the city such as the pier to be accessible, it was pretty much a no-brainer. Just get this done, and at the end of the day, it was a very big success, and it's just come to a year, just past a year now. So August 27th, the mat was installed on the pier, and it gave a lot of people access. Many, for the first time, they had never gone down the length of the pier to the end. And this is a temporary measure; it's not concrete, but it allows for the gaps to be closed and it allows for a smooth surface. And through all the conversations I've had, many are saying thank you. And that's been, very gratifying. And to hear the stories that, where people can just transverse down it now and experience something new is a really gratifying feeling. And so that really, that was a huge project, the very first one that I
Yeah.
took on. And it was very successful. And that just propelled me to continue doing more in this line of work. And so I've connected with many other organizations, large and small restaurants, businesses to bring to their attention all the barriers that may exist. And many of them have been receptive. And it's been a very interesting journey and really rewarding because it's making a difference not just for me, it's making a difference for everyone. And that's the beauty of accessibility, that it benefits everyone.
I agree. And kudos to you. That was a lot of work. It took a lot of bravery as well to
Mhm.
push for the accessibility at the pier at White Rock. And the community now appreciates and enjoys the accessibility that they can have at the White Rock Pier, right? How about the challenges that you faced amidst this advocacy? How were the challenges and how did you face them?
Well, the challenges were with the city, and there was a lot of delay tactics used and a lot of, I would say, pushback. And I faced those on with getting the facts out to them and also ensuring that the public knew about these delay tactics and the facts that were needed. And really that helped because as I continued and went to council meetings, I had answers. And it was having those answers that they could just not deny anymore. And those were things like the cost. They said they needed the money, but we knew and we had facts that they had money specifically set aside for things like the accessibility mat. And then they said, well, we look for grants. I said, well, I've sent you the list of grants.
Mhm.
And it just made them look unprepared and very, you know, not ready for what was to come, really, because I had been prepared and just having all the facts and being ready for that, it really set me up for success. And even when there was another meeting with the accessibility committee, they had brought forward a staff report. And the staff report still wasn't put together properly. And I was fortunate to be invited to that meeting as a guest. And so I got the agenda about a week ahead of time. And when I saw that they had still outstanding questions, that the report was saying essentially, oh, there's 4 options, but we need to answer like 20 questions on there still. And that would have, delayed it even more. And because I knew contacts of the different vendors of different mats, it was a simple email. I got the answers. I brought it to the meeting that day. So you know what? A decision was made that day. And it wasn't hard. It was things like this that I felt, they had those contact emails as well. I had provided everything so they could go forward with this right away. But yeah, so just being really prepared and even having samples of the mats. I had the vendors send it to my house. So I had samples to show to, the look, the feel, everything. So
Wow.
just being really prepared set me up for success to overcome those challenges.
That's great. Susan, the Surrey Board of Trade has recently recognized you for your leadership, for what you have done. What does this award mean to you personally and the cost of accessibility?
Well, it was a tremendous feeling for sure. And I made sure that when, I spoke about it, when I received the award, that I made sure it wasn't just about me. This was about elevating and bringing awareness to accessibility. And yeah, in that speech, it was about that and telling everybody that this impacts everyone, and it's not a group of people only. This is about humanity, really, because at one point in our lives, we can have a disability, and it will happen. It's not even can happen; it will happen at some point. And to some people, it's just bringing that awareness, like even wearing glasses is a visual disability. And it's thinking about it that in that context, right? And bringing the facts that right now, 1 in 4 Canadians has at least one disability. And so we need to prepare our policies, built environment, training, everything around this so
Yeah,
that it's not an option. It is something we need to build and then think about it in the beginning before things are done.
yeah,
And that's essentially what I wanted to bring forward through that award. It wasn't about getting a trophy, it was about winning. It was about really elevating that message and getting it out to the businesses in Surrey and as far as, throughout BC eventually, hopefully, if others were watching. So, yeah, it was a great feeling to
yeah.
spread that message and have that platform to spread that message.
Yeah, you've mentioned the importance of preparing infrastructure to make sure that there's accessibility, but there's an importance of having that mindset shift. Like, how do you help people see accessibility not as an obligation, but as an opportunity?
Well, it's a human right, right? And this is where you have to give practical examples. And when I talked about going back to the peer, and I talk about this example for everyone really, but it's the same as if a city or if an organization needed to put in a women's washroom, for example. Say there wasn't a women's washroom, they wouldn't go and ask the females in the community to go fundraise and go find out options and build it yourself. No, they would take care of it
Yeah,
because that is a human right. And that needs to be, and the accessibility needs to be looked at in the same light, in the very same way. And that access is a right and it is an obligation by these businesses. And I don't think that many businesses and organizations truly ignore this. There definitely are some, but I think at the core, there's just an unawareness.
yeah,
And this is what I've found. If it really doesn't impact you or somebody you know that's close to you, you really have no idea about the barriers that may exist in your organization. And so, for example, wherever I see it, wherever I go, I make sure it's like something I just can't be quiet about. I have to bring it forward because, again, awareness, bringing that awareness forward. And, there was a restaurant that I kept going to locally, and there was about a 2 to 3 inch lip to get in the front door. And, I had to pop up my wheels and then, get pushed from the back just to get into the front door. And I was like, this is ridiculous. This needs to be fixed. And so I took the opportunity while I was eating dinner to talk to the manager, and she came over and she just had this really confused face and she wasn't understanding it. And I said, you know what, just come with me. So we both went to the front door, and it was like her eyes were just so wide. She was like, I had no idea
yeah,
that this was here, like, as a barrier because, she's an able-bodied person and walking in is just a natural taking a step. And so when she saw me have to, struggle to get in the front door, she was like, "Wow, thank you for letting me know." And, I showed her solutions for it. There's quick little ramps you can get done, get made, sent over. And the great thing about it was she did it.
yeah,
And, within a month, it was there. It was a simple little metal ramp that made it easy to roll up now. And it wasn't, this is going to benefit everyone.
yeah.
People coming with strollers, people coming with walkers, anybody, because you're not going to trip over that step, right? So these kind of things, it's really having them walk alongside you so they can see the barriers, and that makes the most impact, because speaking about it, you're not going to see it. You're not going to understand it fully until you actually see somebody have to deal with the barriers. That's when it really makes that aha moment for them.
Yeah.
And the good thing is many have made the changes. So yeah.
What do you think are the important, shall I say, lessons or that people or even young kids should learn to be able to understand the meaning and value of accessibility?
Well, it's really the stats that I talked about, and bringing it home. I think if we think about kids, bringing it home to them, they think about, who do you know, and what is, and define what is disability, and what does accessibility mean in your home, in your community. And there's a lot of great little clips out there that have been made now, just educational pieces. But bringing it home to them and talking about who in your family, or say grandparents, and just really speaking to those points and bringing it, like I said, just making it really practical.
Yeah.
And I think then that way there will be more awareness. And something that I've been working on as well now, as a result of my experience with the peer and the city, one of the learnings that I found there wasn't an understanding. And the province has essentially come down and mandated that municipalities and public sectors have to have three components now. They need to have an accessibility plan, an accessibility committee, and a feedback mechanism on accessibility. And so they've been mandated to do this, but what's missing is the why.
Yeah.
Why are we doing this? And that it comes down to training. And I've been pushing that at the provincial level. And I think it's really important that all businesses and organizations have a component of training.
Yes.
And this comes from my background in human resources. I used to be a consultant as well as work in-house with many organizations. And it just made me think back to the legislation of in 2013 when bullying and harassment came out, where that was mandated that all businesses have to have training on that. They have to have a record of the training that has been done and a policy. And I'm indicating that accessibility needs to be done the very same way. And if businesses and organizations had that, then there would be a level of understanding as to what is disability, how does it impact the organization and the community, and why is it important that we put it in the policies, and as we build things in the city or within an organization, that they understand the reason now.
Yeah.
So that's where I feel the push needs to go. So a lot of training, and for schools, for the young youth, training videos and clips, and actual people with lived experience speaking about these things,
Yeah.
coming out and talking to the classrooms. And now with the cities having accessibility committees, there's a requirement to have at least 50% with people with lived experience or organizations that represent that. But hopefully people with lived experience are on there, because that's really the voice, because it's the philosophy of nothing about us without us. You really need to include those that have the lived experience to bring the reasoning and the practical solutions for barriers to be removed.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Susan, what role do you think technology and social media will play in advancing accessibility over the next few years?
Oh, it will impact it hugely. It already has. And, things like closed captioning are there, and AI now for note taking, because with having disabilities, you may not be able to do all that. And I don't even think it's with disabilities, everybody, it's having to multitask, get things done. And if you think about it now, like I'll watch shows with closed captioning on it anyways, because I can't capture and hear every single word.
True.
And it makes a difference. but all for the people that, somebody that may not have hearing or a low hearing, it makes a huge difference. And it's being aware of these things, as we do postings now. There's built-in AI that says, "Oh, we're gonna add closed captioning to this," or it's being aware too of things to add. So, when I post on LinkedIn and I post a photo, I make sure that I put a description of the photo. So it's there for somebody that may not be able to see it fully. But technology is gonna be a huge aid. It already is.
Are there any specific innovations, AI tools for that matter, that truly excite you right now?
The note taking for sure. I think that's a huge, huge bonus because it will summarize a meeting that you've had verbally, and then it will, break it down into the topics, the tasks that you've assigned, and then you can go in it after and edit it as needed, but it's a huge time saver. And also it captures everything that you may not capture if you were taking notes as well.
Yeah. You've been very successful at your advocacy, and people begin to realize the importance of accessibility, not just because of what they see, but also primarily because of what you have done and what you continue to do. For listeners out there who want to be advocates in their own circles, whether at work, in their communities, or online, what's one action that you would recommend that they would start today?
Speak up. That's where it starts. You need to speak up. You need to speak up, and it starts with that one voice. Because if you don't say anything, nothing will be brought forward or nothing can be done. And to keep being persistent, you say one thing once, you need to follow up. And this is what's made me hugely successful, not only in advocacy, but my own healthcare too. So when dealing with the spinal cord, going back to that spinal cord condition, um, I had to do a lot of chasing. And it was unfortunate because you put this in your mind, you think these are the professionals and they're going to follow up with you, but they don't always. And so having to be persistent is really important. And that goes a long way. It shows one that you are determined and you will follow through. Um, but also shows your the importance behind it and that you're carrying that. So definitely starts with speaking out.
Good for you. What's next for you, Susan?
It's very exciting, actually. What's next and what's happening right now is I am rolling. I'm not running for White Rock City Council's by-election. It's on September 27th, within 2 weeks. So it's very exciting news.
And what are you going to push for when you roll in your
Well, I'm
candidacy?
pushing, well, on my platform. So my platform um, embeds accessibility within everything in the city. And by doing that, is truly a city for all. And what does all mean for me? That's the acronym that I'm using in my platform, ALL. A stands for accountable growth and development. The next L is local economy. And the last L is living safe and connected. So here in White Rock, accountable development speaks to the overdevelopment and the lack of infrastructure for that the current council has gone against the OCP, the official community plan, where the height restrictions are being ignored. And so that's really put a lot of pressure, not just on taxpayer money, but the people that live here. Because where are the doctors' offices? Where is the parking that supports all of this densification that's happened? And with local economy, is really building up the businesses here and looking at the barriers that don't allow them to open or even remain open. One thing for sure is the current permits and licensing process. It takes way too long.
Yeah.
These businesses want to open here and thrive. But, I talked to one that just barely opened. They said we almost went bankrupt because they're paying month after month waiting for the permits and the licensing to come through for them to even start opening their doors. So these are problems that we need to, really address and evaluate. And the living safe and connected. is speaking to safety within our community. And this is things like lighting, crosswalks, the railway crossings, which I'm already working on as
Yeah.
well, that pose barriers, and even patrols, having foot patrols down on the promenade where it's very busy, just to bring that heightened level of safety there. And also within that category is healthy, active living and bringing adaptations to all the programs that are there for the community members. An example is like when they do, groups want to come out and do yoga on the pier, for example. They should really be building in adaptive methods. So it's not just everybody bring your own mat. We'll have some chairs so that people that may not be able to go down on a mat can also participate. It's really about making sure that everyone, all can participate in within the community. That will be a benefit to everyone. And the last part of that is bringing back community committees,
Yeah.
and that will right now there's a very well, the city got rid of a lot of the committees, and what that's done has it's eliminated the voice of the community to bring forward issues on, say, there's a committee on economic development or a committee on, beautification or gardening within the city, that these are the voices that are lacking, and it causes people to start thinking, well, the city doesn't care what I think now, and they're just going to decide what they want. And that will snowball into just a very untrusting community, and this is not what we want, right? The city of White Rock is small. There's only 22,000 people, and we want to keep our unique seaside charm. And by doing these things that I'm prioritizing within my acronym of ALL, I believe the city will get to a better place.
That's wonderful. Those plans and platform are commendable. But surely it is not easy. And
No,
for sure, there's going to be a lot of challenges ahead of you. Where do you find your drive and your inspiration?
I would say, it starts with my parents for sure. They installed the work hard, never give up in me. And I believe I've just carried that through, and facing all these challenges in my life, there just really wasn't an option to not give up and keep going. And then as I went through the healthcare condition and issue, I had my daughter was young at that time. And then she pushed me through that because as a mother, and having a child, they don't really see the issue with you. They're just a child and they're like, "Hey, mom, come play with me here. Take me there. Take me that." And so, that pushed me through that moment in my life. And just having really good family and friends as well that are there to support you through these challenges. So yeah, I think it's just a mix of what's inside you and also seeing the results of what you're doing continues that drive, because seeing those impacts that I'm having on so many people just continues to fuel my drive for sure.
Yeah. One last question, Susan. What
Uh,
would make you happy and satisfied with all your work?
what makes me happy and satisfied is not even what will, what does is having people listen and truly making a change that benefits everyone. When I see businesses and organizations and people start to understand after talking to them or showing them and them making a change, that is satisfying because I know I've made a difference to one person, and then that will go on to the next person and their friends and their family, and it's a great feeling.
That's wonderful. On that note, I thank you for sharing your advocacy and your story with us, Susan. And to our listeners and viewers out there, may the story of Susan encourage you to help create a space where inclusion and accessibility are the norm, not the exception. Thank you so much, Susan.
Thanks, Sherry.
Yeah.
Take
Thank you
care.
for joining us here on Live Expressions. I'm your host, Charie Ginete-Ilon. Don't forget to click that subscribe or follow button. We create a positive impact wherever we are, however we can, in all that we do. Till next time, here on Live Expressions.